Welcome to Judicial Dollars and Cents, brought to you by Anders Virtual CFO Services team from all across the United States. I'm John Scott, and in each episode, we'll shine a light on the financial side of the legal world, turning law firm numbers into impact-driven stories. From taxes and profitability to practice growth and leadership, we sit down with law firm innovators who are shaping the future of the profession. Let's dive in, right here on Judicial Dollars and Cents. Hey, welcome back to Judicial Dollars and Cents, the podcast where we dive into the business side of running a law firm. I'm John Scott with Anders Virtual CFO Services for law firms, and each week we talk with industry experts who help law firm leaders think differently about growth, profitability, and performance so they can build practices that last. Today we welcome Rose Harper. Rose is the founding attorney and owner of Rose Harper Law, which is a multi-state practice serving clients across New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Her firm focuses on personal injury representation, including motor vehicle accidents, premise liability, and wrongful death, as well as estate planning services designed to help families protect their future. Known for her compassionate, client-centered approach, Rose has built a practice focusing on simplifying complex legal processes and helping individuals make informed decisions during some of the most difficult times of their lives. Well, Rose, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Hey, I love to hear people's origin story. Can you tell us how you got from where you began, let's say high school, to the practice of law and opening your own firm?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really come from a family of lawyers. I had one lawyer in my family. It was my aunt, and she was really just a local small town lawyer. She had an office in the center of town, and I interned with her after college. I had actually started a master's program in education, but something didn't feel right internally. I felt convicted, like there's something else I'm supposed to be doing with my time. And during that time, I interned with my aunt, and she was such a great resource to the local elderly community. They would call her with questions, and she would tell me, just tell them to give me 3 hours, and she would research the issue for them for free and give them the response for free. She was not a businesswoman, but she really inspired me. I thought, if she can do this for our local community, maybe I can do that too. It seems pretty interesting. You find out a new issue each day, and you look into it, and you can help people. It just felt like a really wonderful thing she was doing. So that, at the same time, in conjunction with a bunch of my friends from college, were going off to medical school and law school. I was a part of the honors program in college, mostly for the free pizza lunch. But the group that I became connected with through that program were really encouraging. I was a single mom at the time. I had my first son when I was really young, and I attended college on a volleyball scholarship. So I was a really busy person. I was working. I was doing what I need to do for my scholarship, and, going to class and taking care of my son. So I would kind of scarf down pizza for free in between classes. But the people in that group really encouraged me, like, just because you're a mom doesn't mean you can't go on to law school. Like, if we're doing it, you can do it too. So their encouragement, combined with the inspiration from my aunt, was really pivotal for me at that time. And I talked to my parents who were helping me. My son and I were living with them, and they really wanted me to be a teacher. They just thought, oh man, if you're a teacher, you have the same schedule as your son. It just seems like the right thing to do. That's the path that my parents wanted for me. But I knew internally, what my God-given purpose was, and I needed to follow that conviction. So I did. I ultimately was able to take the LSAT. I got into a lot of law schools, and chose Seton Hall in New Jersey to remain close by my family support at the time.
Yeah, that family support is so important because law school is such a big commitment, and you having a child, it would be important to be close to home. And sometimes parents want what's safe, and I'm glad you listened to God and did what you thought was your true calling. And it sounds like your aunt was a great inspiration to you. My own daughter is an attorney and works in the nonprofit world, and I never in a million years thought she would go to law school, but one of my clients who's very entrepreneurial looked at her and said, Katie, you can work in a nonprofit, or you could go to school and run the nonprofit. And I thought, Joe, you are you're beating a dead horse here. This is not going to work. And we got in the car when we left his house, and she said, Dad, I think I want to go to law school. I'm like, really? That's awesome. And she
That's
does
amazing.
work in the public sector, and, she doesn't make what she could make, but she's doing what she wants to do. So I'm happy for her.
That's
Hey,
so beautiful. I'm glad she did that.
yeah, I am too. And she's very happy. So how did you combine PI work with estate planning? And is it primarily the same clients that have a windfall to compensate for an accident that then you want them to be smart with that money, or are they a separate client base?
Well, both. So it can be that, the personal injury does overlap with estate planning because if, for example, one of the parties to the action passed away, you need to open up an estate with the surrogates court, get the probate going. You need someone to be designated as the executor to even pursue your case sometimes. Or if the defendant passes, the same thing. You need to get someone to be appointed to make legal decisions for the estate. So there is kind of overlap in that sense, which a lot of people don't realize. And then, like you pointed out, when I have a client who does come into a lot of money because their injuries are that severe. Sometimes they want to put that money into a trust to secure it for their family or things like that. So we can help them out with that as well. But really, I think it's just a part of being a mom. I have 3 kids. I did my own estate plan and I wanted to be able to help other people protect their family through estate planning because it's something that we don't really think about on every day. And obviously, all of us are hoping that we live long and healthy lives, but it's really just a part of getting that legal security in place for your family. And with the personal injury, that path really kind of found me. My aunt had passed away my first year of law school, and I did not have any connections. I went to law school in New Jersey, but I wanted to practice back home in New York. And I had no connection, so I had to take the jobs that were available to me. I worked for a solo practitioner for like 6 months, got some stuff on my resume, and then got my big break working for a defense firm in Manhattan. And I just continued on with my path wherever I felt convicted, wherever I needed to apply. I just continued on with the path that was finding me. And I love what I do. I love being able to help people, educate them on the legal system and their options, help them get the most value they can out of their case. Because a lot of times what happens, and I've worked on both sides. So I actually started my career out on the defense side. I loved that too. And I worked in-house for Liberty Mutual. They were an amazing company. So I have the experience of being on both sides of the aisle here in working these types of cases. But I think I give that advantage to my clients as well. And it's one of those things where it's an everyday situation. I think people don't realize how often them or someone within their sphere, a family member, a friend, a neighbor, someone you work with, accidents are happening every day. So I think a lot of times people kind of still have this stigma of like a personal injury attorney, like, oh, they're just like ambulance chasers. But the reality is we're a really important resource to the community. And hopefully you don't need us, but when you do, we're there for you and to make sure that we're holding accountable the insurance companies and making sure you get a fair shot at, what you should be compensated for because the accident wasn't your fault and you're injured now.
That is invaluable experience you had both inside the insurance company and on the defense side, because what the other side, their tactics are going to be, and you know how to represent the plaintiffs on this side. So in your practice, where was your first office before you expanded to the other 2 states?
So when I first opened my law firm, I was only licensed in New York and New Jersey. So that's where I had my 2 office locations, and that's where I had my client base. And then in 2025, I got licensed in Pennsylvania because I had moved to Allentown, Pennsylvania, almost 4 years ago now.
I've heard
And
that's the center of the universe.
some might say, yeah, there's a lot happening here. We're growing. Allentown is a part of a 3-city area: Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton, and the greater towns that kind of make up what's called the Lehigh Valley. And in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, there's almost 800,000 residents. There's a lot of industry. There's a lot happening here, and we're 1 hour north of Philadelphia. We're an hour and a half from Manhattan. It's really an ideal location. It's safe, it's suburban, it's quiet. My kids have everything they need. So, that's a part of what I want to build here, that community feel. I live here and work here. My kids go to school here. But at the same time, I'm very close. I mean, I have clients throughout the state of New Jersey, and, I go there often. Same with New York. I mean, New York's my hometown. I've lived there for over 30 years. And then I went to law school in New Jersey. Like, I still feel at home when I go to Newark. But yeah, so I'm in all 3 states now, and I'm loving it.
So tell me about your practice. What case management system do you use for your files?
We are using Filevine. And if you want to know more information about Filevine and you're listening to this, contact me. I can connect you personally with my representative, who's amazing. And yeah, but we've been really enjoying it. I think Filevine, there's a lot of features to it that we really like. The reporting is great, and it's just more user friendly to be able to search for things. They have integrated AI features, and they also have a program that works with it as well to integrate like any leads that you get in, called Lead Docket. So it provides a really seamless experience, from beginning to end.
We love Filevine, and a lot of our clients use Filevine. And I find first of all, it has a great bridge to QBO. It's an add-on, but it can help you with your accounting finances so you're not rekeying things. And then also we use Filevine to build reports to actually value the inventory of your PI cases and then predict future cash flows, because motor vehicle accidents have a certain cadence. Med
Yes.
mal has a certain cadence, and you can say from intake to adjudication will be X number of months, and here's where this case is that's worth, let's say, $15,000 fees. Here's where it is in the maturity of its life cycle, and we use that to then forecast cash flows so that we can, because I've seen firms that you say, hey, what are we going to collect over the next 3 months? And they get their yellow legal pad out and they start writing down case names. I'm like, wait a minute. You don't have a case management system? And there are still a few firms out there that don't. But
Wow.
if you have a good case management system and you use it correctly, it can be a wealth of information. And Filevine, I agree, is one of the best.
Yeah, I think it's really important, like in today's day and age, especially with people doing like higher volume practices, like you need to have that system in place. I mean, honestly, now I think even for like document retention, like I can't even imagine firms are still doing things like on paper or with just like a computer drive. I really feel like now you need to be cloud-based and have that protection in place to back up your files. We have an obligation to preserve data, for X amount of years, depending on your jurisdiction. So I think it's really essential, even as like a backup, even if you do prefer to use like something on your local computer, I think it's important.
Well, and the AI functions, AI is ever changing. And I find there's two camps of attorneys, one that thinks that AI is going to be the death of the profession. And then there's another camp, which I suspect you're in, that is embracing it and using it to create some efficiencies by letting it do some of the repeatable mundane tasks with human oversight.
Mhm.
But it'll create efficiencies that hopefully we don't necessarily use to do more work, but rather spend time with family and pull back some of our life here. So what specifically in the AI world are you embracing?
Yeah, so I use AI limited. I don't use it for extensive drafting, but I think that it can help summarize certain things. It can help you with like email drafting or getting an outline together, or I just sent it something. I had taken handwritten notes, and I sent AI the images of my handwritten notes and said, please type up a Word doc, because I wanted to preserve them electronically, digitally, for myself for later reference and easy searchability. So those are the types of things you can use AI that saved me a lot of time from having to type in my whole outline that I had written, right? So it's a time saver in that sense. But I think that it's not where people think it is in terms of functionality, and it really does need a lot of oversight. It's a tool to be used, but it does not replace a paralegal or a legal assistant or an attorney, like in my opinion.
No,
It just
I agree, but it can make their lives better and more efficient and create a
really,
little bit of capacity. And I love, I do the same thing with my notes, because if you looked at my notes, A, you couldn't read them, and B, they're all over the page.
yeah.
So what I typically do is dictate it into something that transcribes it, and I dump that in to organize it. And then I
Mhm.
send it out to the team that's working on the client, and I say, hey, here's the summary of the call that we just had. And of course, we have an AI that's in-house and geofenced so that none of that is going out into the public domain. At least that's what
Right.
I'm told. So if you look back on starting the Rose Harper Law Firm, what would you do different if you started it today?
So in my first year, my first full calendar year, I definitely made mistakes with, not properly vetting certain vendors, and and also not properly going through like the right process for hiring, and things like that. So there are certain mistakes that I made, that were lessons. I learned a lot in that first year, but so moving forward, making sure that I'm choosing the people that I want to work with, strategic partners, being strategic about it, and making sure that I have personal referrals from people that have had success with them. Just understanding better, how I should vet the companies that I'm working with, and, really thinking about what is the goal with this partnership, and, then holding them accountable to that goal.
So let's switch gears a little bit. So in PI,
Mhm.
there's often a gap between what clients expect and what actually happens. So what are some of the most common misconceptions that you see clients have in the process, and how do you overcome that? How do you set the expectation that with what's really going to happen?
Yeah, I see that a lot with my client base particularly. I speak Spanish, and a lot of my clients are Spanish speaking. And when you come to the US, maybe from another country, it's a totally different legal system and insurance system, and there's a lot to learn and navigate. So I take that opportunity to really educate my clients. I want them to thoroughly understand, what are the aspects that even make a solid personal injury case, right? Because you might have been really injured, but if there's no insurance to cover either vehicle, how are you going to recover? Someone who's driving around with no insurance on their vehicle probably doesn't own a home or an asset that you can attach a judgment to. So just really like understanding these concepts, like, you're saying that you're having difficulty going to work. Well, you actually have to get a doctor to assess you and say whether, what your injuries are. You can't just like say, well, this is what I'm having difficulty with. I need a documented proof to show that. So just kind of explaining that process, because most of my clients have never gone through this before. So they don't even know, you know, how to navigate reporting the accident to their insurance. And then there's a lot of questions around like, well, if I didn't cause the accident, why does my insurance have to know about this? But helping them to understand, well, the way our system is set up, even though you didn't cause the accident, your medical bills get paid through your own insurance. That's just how we do it, explaining no fault. And so heavy on the education. My team is always available. Our clients have our direct numbers. They can text us, call us, they can email us. We're always accessible. And I think being heavy on the education aspect helps to alleviate a lot of that anxiety and a lot of that fear. And because we do free consultations and we work for free up front, we only get paid if we win. That helps alleviate that like barrier that some people might have with their clients in other areas of law where they're billing per hour. We don't have that. So we get the opportunity to really help our clients understand and make empowered decisions, because ultimately it's their case. It's their body, it's their case, it's their damages. They're the ones that went through it. So I'm just putting them in a position where they can make educated decisions along the way.
When you said we only get paid if we win, it triggered John Morgan in my mind. And so we're going to go down the rabbit hole of lawyer advertising. And Morgan & Morgan is a big advertising machine. I'm sure they're in your area as well. How do you attract clients, knowing that word of mouth is the best, but what else do you do to bring in clients?
Well, currently I'm only referral based. So my client base is people that I've gotten from personal referrals and connections, my current client base. And that's really it. I'm not running ads. I don't do other advertising. Perhaps I'll get to a point where I want to grow my firm in a way where I will do that. But, and I have a social media presence, but it's really just more so like, if my personal connection refers someone to me and they Google me, at least it's like, okay, this person exists and she's
Real.
and because I feel like now at this point, it's like, if you don't, hopefully you're not hearing my dog in the background, but if you don't have some type of presence online, people kind of think like, are you a real lawyer? Where did you even come from? So you kind of have to have something out there. But as of right now, I'm only in my second calendar year. So I'm not really getting involved in like brand awareness campaigns. Too heavy. We'll see what comes up in the near future.
Well, good. I think that referral-based business is probably the best that you can get. And if you start to advertise, you'll get more clients, but they're not always the same quality clients. And you shouldn't want to compete with the Morgan and Morgans of the world. It should be do what fits for you.
Yeah, and I really like how my aunt did things, and she was in her local community, and that's really my goal. I want to be the go-to legal resource for my communities in, Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, the Northern New Jersey, and Hudson Valley, New York. So that's the goal.
So PI is contingent based.
Yes.
Estate planning can be hourly or fixed fee. How do you charge for your estate planning services?
I usually do a flat rate. It's simpler for me. And of course, it depends on the type of case, right?
So does it scale with the amount of assets, or how do you scale it?
No, I mean, I haven't been doing that, but the estate planning, it really depends on the type of case, right? If you're probating an estate, that's different than, drafting up a will for someone. So it depends on what you're doing, really. But honestly, the majority of my practice now, I'm doing the contingency work for the personal injury, and I have a couple of counsel attorneys who handle the estate planning now.
I love the mix of those two. It's unique, and you don't see a lot of PI firms that do that. Hey, I want to switch gears as we start to wrap up and talk about something that I like to do, and I think you do too, is travel. And you've been to Rome, and I know you're very faith-based. What was the best part of Rome, and what was the worst part of Rome?
Oh, I don't know, the food, the history, like I can't even, I don't really have anything negative to say about Rome. I loved it. You know how they say all roads lead to Rome. It was great. And I can't wait to go back. There was so much to do. I was never bored. I just really enjoyed my time.
Yeah, so my youngest of 4 spent a semester in Florence, Italy, and towards the
Lovely.
end of his semester, we went over to visit. We started in Rome, and he met us there. I loved Rome, the history, the Vatican,
Yeah.
religious people, and people from all over the world are coming to Rome. And what I didn't like about Rome compared to the rest of Italy was the amount of people. I mean, I was there in May, and it was still super crowded compared to the other parts of Rome that we went to. But I would go back in a heartbeat. The food is good. I don't really drink, but the red wine was really good too. I had a few glasses of red wine, and I didn't get a headache. I would go back to Rome in a heartbeat. Hey, Rose, this has been great. How can folks get a hold of you and your firm?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm on LinkedIn, or they can email us info@roseharperlaw.com or call 201-377-2337.
Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in to Judicial Dollars and Cents. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us grow and ensures that you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time on Judicial Dollars and Cents. Thanks for joining us on Judicial Dollars and Cents, presented by Anders Virtual CFO Services. If you found value in today's conversation, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. To learn more about how Anders helps law firms strengthen their financial foundations and drive growth, visit anderscpa.com. Until next time, keep making smart decisions that make perfect sense.